Have you ever had a thought so disturbing, so irrational, that you stopped and asked yourself, where did that come from? A violent image, a cruel idea, a voice whispering something you'd never dare say out loud. You blink, you shake it off, and you tell yourself, that wasn't me. And in a way, you're right, because you are not your thoughts. But that's also the problem. We grow up believing our mind is who we are. Our thoughts are our identity. What we think defines what we are. But modern psychology, ancient philosophy, and even neuroscience now suggest something much more uncomfortable. The mind thinks on its own. Thoughts come and go, like weather systems across the sky of your awareness. You don't choose most of them. They appear, uninvited, unfiltered, uncontrolled. And yet, we live as if every single one of them is a reflection of us. This is where the damage begins. Imagine standing at a train station. Each train that passes is a thought. Some are helpful, some are curious, some are dark. But you're not the train. You're the observer on the platform. The problem is, most people don't realize they're watching trains. They jump onto every one, riding it straight into fear, anger, shame, obsession. We confuse thinking with identity. We believe we are the voice in our head. But if you were that voice, who's the one listening? This is the beginning of awareness. Not silence, not peace, not enlightenment. Just this. Not every thought is true, and not every thought is yours. Some thoughts are echoes of your past. Some are cultural noise. Some come from trauma, fear, conditioning. Cognitive behavioral therapy teaches this very principle. Just because you think something doesn't make it real. You can have the thought, I'm worthless. That doesn't mean it's true. You can have the thought, they hate me. That doesn't mean it's reality. You can think, I'm not enough, and still be more than enough. The ability to recognize a thought as a thought is one of the most important skills you can develop. But most of us never learn it. We grow up inside our minds, never questioning the thoughts that pass through, never noticing how automatic, repetitive, and irrational they often are. We treat the mind like a mirror, but it's more like a projector. It throws images at us, stories, loops, wounds in disguise, and the mind doesn't care if it makes you suffer. Its job is not to make you happy. Its job is to keep you safe, to anticipate danger, to overthink, overanalyze, obsess. Because once upon a time that saved your life, but now it might be what's breaking you. That's why mindfulness exists. That's why therapy works. That's why meditation isn't about sitting still. It's about learning to see thoughts as passing clouds. You are the sky, the thoughts are the weather. But here's where it gets darker. Because if you are not your thoughts, and you start to notice what they're really saying, you might not like what you find. You might realize that many of your thoughts are angry, or bitter, or cruel, or afraid. You might see patterns of envy, judgment, revenge. You'll realize your thoughts aren't pure, they're human, messy, contradictory, and if you're honest, you'll have to admit something terrifying. If I'm not my thoughts, but I believed them for most of my life, then who have I really been? There's a system in your brain called the default mode network. It activates when you're doing nothing, just sitting, walking, scrolling, waiting. And what does it do when you're not focused? It starts talking. That inner monologue you hear all the time, that's your default mode network at work. Reviewing the past, predicting the future, worrying, regretting, replaying memories, inventing disasters. In short, suffering in advance. You don't need to be in danger to feel fear. Your thoughts can make it real. You don't need to be hated to feel rejection. Your thoughts can simulate it. You don't need to be a failure to feel shame. Your thoughts can fabricate it. That's the power of identification. The moment you believe a thought, you live inside it. And here's the trap. We try to escape negative thoughts by thinking more. We try to outsmart sadness with logic. We try to outthink anxiety by imagining every possible outcome. But you can't outthink a storm if you're standing in the middle of it. The only way to step out is to see it for what it is, just weather. This is where mindfulness becomes more than a buzzword. It becomes survival. To sit quietly and say, that's a thought. Not me, not truth, just a cloud drifting by. You watch it, you don't fight it, you don't follow it, you don't fear it. And in doing that, something profound happens. You create distance. You become the space between thoughts, the witness. And in that space, something strange starts to grow. Peace. Not the peace of everything going right, but the peace of no longer believing everything you think. That's real freedom. Not the absence of problems, but the ability to experience problems without becoming them. But it's not easy, because thoughts are addictive. They feed your identity. They give you someone to be, even if it's a victim, even if it's a villain, even if it's someone broken, anxious, angry. The ego would rather be somebody who suffers than be nobody at all. So it clings to the past, to resentment, to pain, because the voice in your head doesn't want silence. It wants to win. It wants to prove a point. It wants to control the story. It wants to be right, even if that means you stay miserable. That's why awakening is so rare, not because it's far away, but because it's so close. We overlook it. You don't need to destroy your thoughts. You don't need to purify your mind. You just need to stop identifying with it. Ask yourself, if I'm not my thoughts, who am I? Not intellectually, not spiritually, but viscerally. What's left when the voice goes quiet? What remains when all the noise fades? If you're not your thoughts, then who are you? This is the question that unravels the illusion. Because once you stop believing every thought, once you stop chasing every mental voice, you start to feel something else. Stillness, not silence, but presence. A quiet awareness beneath the noise. And in that awareness, you realize something profound. You are not the storm. You are the sky. This isn't about becoming thoughtless. You will always have thoughts. They're not the enemy. They're just not the master. You can use the mind, but you no longer have to be it. You can observe fear without becoming afraid. You can notice anger without letting it define your reaction. You can hear shame without collapsing into it. That's freedom, not control, not dominance, but space. Most people don't want this freedom. Not really. They want to win. They want to be right. They want their story to matter. But stories are made of thoughts, and thoughts change, collapse, contradict. So if you build your identity on them, you'll never feel whole. Carl Jung once wrote, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life, and you will call it fate." This is what he meant. When you live inside your thoughts, you are asleep, dreaming a life of reaction, fear, and projection. When you wake up, you still have the same life, but now you have choice. Now you have vision. Now you have space. And from that space, you can respond instead of react. You can breathe instead of spiral. You can forgive without forgetting. You can see your own shadow without fearing it. You become responsible not for your thoughts, but for what you do with them. This is the beginning of self-awareness. And it might just feel like death, because the identity built on thoughts will crumble. The self-image created by beliefs will fade. The illusion of me will fall apart. But in that collapse, something real can finally rise. Not the perfect version of you, not the healed, enlightened, always smiling self, but the real one, present, honest, aware. And when a thought comes, a cruel one, a dark one, a painful one, you won't panic, you won't cling, you'll smile, maybe, and say, "Ah, that's just the mind."